im se svima, i malima i velikima, i bogatima i siromašnima, i slobodnjacima i robovima, dade žig na njihovu desnu ruku ili na čela njihova, te da nitko ne može ništa kupiti ili prodati.
Well,
sorry if I'm shocking.
No, you're not shocking me. I believe that you will shock our audience, part of them. I was laughing because, you know, I get rid of my television 7 years ago. I have a computer. I have computer, of course, and telephone. I need it because I do my research through these tools, but I don't look at the mainstream media and television already for 7 years. I tried even before, but for sure now I know that was the good decision. I had also some other guests here, and my last guest was Dr. Mike Eden. He's the former chief for development in Pfizer, and in his words he said that whole this mRNA technology, what they use for the vaccine for C-19 COVID, is used exactly for depopulation. And now we are coming to this also, that you said that they want to get rid of the humans and they want to implement a system, political system, similar to Nazi system. My opinion is that they want to implement system what is similar to communism, but there is no big difference because all of them want
a really big difference.
Huge power, and they want to control everybody, and now they have technology to do it. And obviously they're using different tools for these purposes. Let's go to the topic, who are they? You mentioned that NATO has the main part in this technology. And I was always asking myself, how is it possible that you can allow that so many planes going above your country and spraying whatever they want? Is there any kind of contract that countries who are member of NATO alliance has to sign it to allow this technology to be used without their permission, exactly without asking each time to do it?
That's a very good question. And in the book, the first one I wrote, I talk about when Nick Begich, the author of Angels Don't Play This HAARP, was invited by the European Parliament, not the European Union, the European Parliament, to speak in 1999 at one of their plenums. And that is the part of the book in here where I lay out a really fascinating thing to me. I am friends with a Greek activist in Greece, and we've been corresponding for the entire time I've been involved in this movement. And he explained to me what had happened regarding Crete, that actually the very first nation that mentioned these trails over it publicly, internationally, was the tiny island of Crete. And they didn't do any analysis particularly of the trails coming down. Though you can collect the precipitation, which is what the scientist I worked with here in the United States did early on a shoestring budget. He collected the detritus coming down after these jets would fly, and he'd see these long trails suddenly dissipating out into a sort of cirrus cloud cover. And then he would take the material that was below it and look at it under his microscope. Well, Crete made their statement, and they were told in no uncertain terms that if you want to be part of NATO, you have to agree to our access to your sky space. And so I know that is very much part of joining NATO. So when I hear of countries that, I just heard that Sweden joined NATO. I actually didn't know that Sweden wasn't a NATO country. I assumed it was. But I'm sure that part of their agreement was that their sky, our sky is your sky kind of thing. And that entails the chemical trails, no doubt about it.
Well, Sweden and Finland just entered to NATO, and they said the reason is because they are afraid of Russia. But okay, that's politics for sure. For us, it's important. Croatia is a member of NATO. I don't believe that our citizens knows that we allow that somebody coming with planes and spray chemicals on our sky. Can you tell us which kind of chemicals they are spraying? I saw in your book, but it's important to say which kind of metals we can find there, and of course we have to remind it, these are nanoparticles. Nanoparticles means that it's smaller than atom. Okay, what kind of metals, exactly chemicals, we can find in these chemtrails?
Yeah, it's not smaller than an atom. It's created with atoms. I mean, they lay the nanoparticles when they create them. Now, remember, there are nanoparticles in space. There are nanoparticles all over the Earth. These are all natural from when we lived by nature's rules. The nanoparticles I talk about, and that's why I normally call them nanotechnology. These are all man-made. Very different story there, and that's the ones where the atoms are laid next to each other, and always you see this sort of aping. I like to use that word, aping of nature's natural technologies, natural parts, in the creation of this synthetic world that they want. So I wanted to make that clear. When they drop the nanoparticles on us, most of them, yes, they are the metals, and that would be the ones we used to, initially we knew about, that we collected, we could actually collect in composites that would fall from the sky after the jets passed. Barium, strontium, aluminum. Aluminum is the most horrible and common that is dropped on us, because the aluminum is cheap, it has a great surface area, and they use aluminum oxide almost, just all the time. And so, and you don't have to go far in a chemistry book to find out that aluminum is one of the worst things that human beings can ever eat or inhale. So, and we're not told about this. Okay, so chromium, lithium. I have a chart that Jim Lee just came out with, Jim Lee at climateviewer.com. He and I have been in touch for years. He has a wonderful chart that he's using in a lawsuit that he and Reinette Senum are conducting right now. And I'll send you that chart. You might want to use it. I don't have it right here at the moment.
I put the link below this video also for our audience.
Good. And so then remember that would be the basics, like those. And there's reasons for why. And that's what I go into in this book and in the second book, Under an Ionized Sky. I go into what each of these metals really adds to the power that we are under, regarding how they're chemically, and remember, they're all being electromagnetically stimulated And that too is part of the problem. And when you brought up earlier, I believe it was you, sorry, I get things confused, about how the heat going on in the world, when you're talking heat, so let's say we know about the solar rays, some of them are able to get through the, we have almost unmitigated cloud cover now here. The sun, where I live, the sun rarely peeks through. We get July and some of August where we actually have a lot of sun, which is wonderful, but the rest of the year, very little, because this, where I live in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, is where they mix the weather that they then tack onto the jet stream, which is just north of me, parked north of me, and they take that weather east for all the droughts and the floods and the storms and the earthquake, for everything that they have planned for the United States in toto. So each one has a different. One of the most fascinating ones is barium. And barium is very good for, well, for example, holograms. You could have an entire fleet of UFOs coming from Alpha Centauri up there that are all holograms to fool the people.
Sorry, can I interrupt for a second? Can I interrupt for a second? It's important now. I was planning to ask you a question about holograms. Now in Croatia, we are facing that our mainstream media is telling us that in the United States they found extraterrestrial not people, well, beings from other space, and they are telling us it's already here present for 50 years, but now they admit it because some guys were talking in front of Congress. I usually, when I see media, I know exactly it's promotion, they're preparing us for something. And now, when they are preparing us to show us that there is extraterrestrials, now we will accept easily if they show us some kind of hologram who will be so, well, will look like extraterrestrial object. Can you tell us, please, about these holograms and how they can do it, and which technology they use, and which chemicals they use it?
Well, yeah, and you're spot on regarding how they set this up. They pretty much follow the same pattern. Here, they okay. So first of all, we have had UFO technology since we brought the Nazis over back in the first time we brought the Nazis over was Werner von Braun. We brought him over in 1937. So he worked here for a long time and was in charge of our rocket program. But the Nazis had spent a great deal of time creating ships that basically, I could say it the way they say it, but I'm going to say it the way I think it is. They capture ether and sort of pull themselves along at tremendous speeds through the atmosphere and out into space. I mean, you can do that, and that is how it works. But this idea of saying it's due to aliens and ETs and reptilians, and then even when many people are abducted and have things happen to them, it's a real question as to who did the abduction. My guess would be it would be what we call MILABs, which are military abductions, and then they use those poor people to experiment on them with their psyops, their psychological operations, and so we're all dupes for ignorance. And most of us, because all this is classified, most of us, we are ignorant. I mean, it's nothing to feel shame about. You're simply not being told. It's being used against you. And so in America, when they are, like recently, someone sent me a clip that there's a comet approaching. So now I've been through this before with the Hale-Bopp comet, which was in the 90s, I believe, or the early 2000s. And I've written about it in my third book, and it's sort of under Operation Bluebeam, which is what we call all this, Bluebeam. Holographs, operations covering up the fact that we do have we have propulsion craft that are extraordinary. So if they're going to experiment with one or they want to fly one, they usually will do it over Mexico, where people don't really have that much access to understanding of our history with the Nazis and the ships and all that. So, and then it makes it sound primitive. It makes it sound, in the case of Croatia, if they use Croatia for something like this, it'll be far away from us, and, we'll just think, people are just ignorant and, whatever. So they always use a cover for this, for their technology. But the technology exists, no question about it. And it is very sophisticated. As to whether it can actually ambulate in space, that I'm really not sure of. Because to my knowledge, our technology has these big, metallic ships that we create really cannot go beyond the what is known as the Schumann's well, which is what we live in. We live in a zone between the ionosphere and the material planet that we're pretty much trapped here because of the Van Allen radiation belts around the planet. And they are very heavy duty radiation. And there's really no way that the natural human being can get through there. So am I saying that we didn't go to the moon? Yes, that's what I'm saying. That just about everyone here knows that now. But it's a matter of not selling cheap is the way I put it. Don't fall for these things, even though there are incredible sophisticated technologies. I admit that, but nothing is from Alpha Centauri or anywhere in space. It's just a way to scare people or entertain them or distract them or whatever. So I don't pay much attention to that. It would be barium they would use. What you would get is heavy chemtrailing for a few days in advance. They would need that particulate matter in the sky, where they were going to now have 3 ionospheric heaters. You need 3 because you're going to create a 3-dimensional hologram. So you would have 3. My guess is they would all be in the northern hemisphere. None in the southern hemisphere, like Australia or anything like that. No, it'd be in the northern hemisphere, and then they would create the hologram that. I don't know if you've ever seen that hologram in a YouTube on the internet of the some sort of museum where they do a holography of whales coming up out of water and splashing in front of the people watching, and I mean it's just incredibly real. But it's a hologram.
Well, I saw it. Unfortunately, all of these things what you are saying I saw, and now I'm here to try to present to our viewers for them to see. You mentioned that now they are building smaller HAARPs and they can move it. Is there a possibility to put them on ships and to bring them, for example, in Adriatic Sea across to Croatia or in Mediterranean Sea, and they can, from this part, they can do some things, for example, earthquakes. We had an earthquake 3 years ago, very hard one in Zagreb. After that, 6 months later, we had one in Banovina, that's southern of Zagreb, capital city. Is this possible that they can done it through this technology, what they can bring into Adriatic Sea through big ships?
Yes, in fact, keep in mind that the main ionospheric heaters now are smaller. They may have less power than HAARP, but because of this idea of the 3 beams versus the 2 beams, they can always use them. Now, regarding the earthquake, let's go into that a little bit. That's a little bit different from creating a storm or a tornado, or what else is there that they do all the time? Any of those.
Hailstorms.
What? Hailstorms, yes, and yeah. So with the earthquake, they have, HAARP has a system whereby it's called tomography, and that would be the ability to use these scalar waves. And we haven't talked about scalar waves, and I'm not going to talk about it because it's complex, and I'm not an expert on it. I still am studying it. But the scalar wave is a longitudinal interfering wave that actually can go straight through the Earth to the other side of the Earth. So, you know, if we wanted to create some sort of something in China or someplace on the other side of the Earth, that would be probably a preparation for that. Now, if it's regarding the tomography, which can go down into the Earth from space, and I would assume from the interferometric beams crossing, sending them straight through the Earth, and then jostling the plates under the Earth in preparation, and then blasting that zone with the ionospheric heaters. That's how that would be done. Now, whether or not you could have a ship with enough juice in the ionospheric heater that is on board on the platform, I would assume you could do it, because HAARP has an amazing power, much more than any other, except perhaps I've heard that in China they now have one, an ionospheric heater that makes HAARP look like child's play. But I don't know if that's propaganda or not.
Well, there was a huge earthquake in Turkey a few months ago, and I saw the pictures where there was a big blast just before earthquake, and there was taping, and they tried to explain it, but I didn't buy it. It looks like, it looks like technology that I'm not, of course, familiar with. But when you now mention this lasers, can you tell us, is it possible that was man-made earthquake?
Oh, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. Like I told you, I don't know of any natural weather that has happened in the whole time that I've been studying all of this. And the blast before is very much a part of geoengineering. And what I'm now wondering is, there is another way that they could do that, which is with what's called the XB-37. I think it's the the X-37B, and that is a space vehicle actually that can that travels in the stratosphere and even above the stratosphere, I've heard, and that is known for that has blasted. It can come in super fast. It has cloaking. You can't see it. And it will blast something and be out of there in a few seconds flat. And it happened years ago, a few years ago. There was that blast that brought down, I think it was on the North Sea or someplace over there, brought down an oil or a gas plant or something like that, just decimated it. And then Elon Musk, the first few SpaceX rockets that in which he was carrying Chinese satellites, those were blasted on the rocket platform. So that was the X-37B as well. So that's something that you might consider, and that does have HAARP-like capabilities.
Can you tell us which kind of disease we can get from these chemtrails? Is there any special that we have to focus on it, or there is a wide range of possibilities?
I think that the primary one that I hear a lot about is, I mean, it has many, there are terms people use, chemtrail flu. It has, it certainly is debilitating to people, and it reminds me of the descriptions for the Corona-19 symptoms. Same kind of thing. Sort of what I would associate with a weakened immune system. Headaches, fatigue, various pains, nausea. All of those are pretty much go with what some people talk about when they talk about getting sick from chemtrails. The confusing part of that is that a lot of these chemtrails are not the same in every region. They're not putting down the same stuff all over the place. Every region might get something a little different, because those two, much like the jabs that people are undergoing, those two are experimental in the sense that they're constantly fine-tuning the chemicals and the frequencies of the electromagnetics that are stimulating the chemicals in the air over certain regions, they can actually lay chemtrails over, say, New York City, where they're maybe going to have a big conference, or they're going to have some sort of debacle that's going to be set up and unleashed, and so they will lay the chemtrails, but then they might tweak it a little bit with another chemical and another bit of electromagnetic frequency in order to pump it up a little bit, as their engineers constantly are measuring the impact of all these. Because, I mean, to give them the credit, they are very bent on controlling the entire planet, and so they are constantly checking and rechecking and rechecking, and I mean, it's endless. And with their AI, even, there's a lot of work that the human factor has to do.
And what about?
I think that's what makes it so unbelievable for people, is that, how could you do that? How could you have the money, first of all, to be able to do that, and endlessly all these years, building it, giving it new directions to go in. But that is what's going on.
Yeah, that's why what I was asking. They need for this planes, and they need pilots. Which kind of planes they are using? Because picture what I saw, it looks like regular transportation planes, not transportation, regular Boeing 747 or something, and also they're using, as I understand, civilian pilots. How come that these pilots didn't come out and say, look, what is happening, they are poisoning us, we are poisoning you, we have to do something about this. What do you think?
Well, I know. They're all forced to sign non-disclosure agreements. And not only will they lose their job, but this all has to do with national security, so they can be hit with federal charges as well. So no, and you're not right in that there are many planes flying now on completely automatic, no pilots, and they're dropping the trails. Yeah.
Drones.
So, well, drones and actual planes that have been painted in certain ways to look like American Airlines or whatever, and are really just have been turned into drones. Yeah. So, I mean, I've often said that maybe they're trying to find a way to keep the atmosphere ionized for their technology without dumping so much debris that then ends up in our lungs and our blood. But that was before the jab happened, when I realized, oh, okay, so they prepped us for 20 years with what we breathe in, and now one of the things that's going in through the jab is software and hardware, microprocessors, so that the 5G, 6G system, and notice I'm including 6G, and I want to make that clear, there is 6G as well out. It's just they have not announced it. It's up and running. So the 5G...
What is 6G? Please tell to our audience.
Yeah,
what is exactly
the
5G?
5G it's millimeter waves, which are just basically tinier than the 4G, the fourth generation cell phone. That also is a phased array antenna setup, by the way. So, you know, we were not safe a long time ago. The whole cell phone technology is bad news, as is the wireless world that we now are forced to live in. And the 6G is even tinier than the millimeter waves. This is terahertz. And terahertz is exactly what they need in order to control the nanotechnology in our bodies and brain. They need that. The tinier the wave, the more powerful it can be on the tiny, what I call the tiny world. Because, see, and this will be, I realize, for another time, but they are moving us from not just life toward artificiality and a synthetic world, but they are also moving us from digital, from molecular biology, which we've had for forever, to digital biology. And what that means is they can use the 6G or the 5G to transmit frequencies from that are digital to someone who has the software and hardware in their bodies and make them sick with symptoms that look for all the world like the disease that the frequency is from, like Ebola or something else. There is no COVID disease. It doesn't exist. That's just the flu. But they can, if they have the frequencies, they can transmit it to us across space, and we will have those symptoms, but we won't really be sick. See, I had this happen to me. I was hit by, I assume, the intelligence agencies that follow me at a conference I did, and I did not get sick. It suddenly just boom, and I had the symptoms, but I felt fine inside. It was a very strange experience because we're used to the molecular biology. We're used to it being separate from the electromagnetic. But that's the direction they're taking us in, is they're to turn us into artificial or hybrid humans. At the very least, they will use electromagnetics to transfer the symptoms and make us sick and make us go to hospitals and doctors and take drugs and all the stuff that they use for their profiteering. But it's not, it has nothing to do with biology.
Well, I heard they are talking about Internet of Things, and they can understand. But they are also talking about Internet of Bodies. And I was listening, they admitted that our cell phones will be part of our body until 2030. That means we will not have any more cell phones. Can implement it in our body and then use it for communication for whatever we want. Is this part of this 6G technology?
Of 6G?
Yes.
Probably, if not 7G. I haven't talked about 7G, but that's coming on too. No, they want us to be electromagnetic beings and to sort of replace these bodies with the nanotechnology that they're constantly delivering through aerosols and through the jabs.
Well,
that's transhumanism. That's part of transhumanism. It's not just a transhuman race, but that's coming too, because those who have had the jabs are in that category. They represent the first transhuman generation. Those of us who have not had the jabs are continuing as human beings, but what you see they've done to our environment is they've made an earth and a society and an atmosphere that we can't produce health from. See, they're making it inimical to the true human being, the human 1.0, by attacking, insulting, and changing the atmospheric environment. This is what's called epigenetics. Before they put the software and the hardware in us, in our blood, that goes then to various parts of our body, and then is run by the 5G, 6G, and inevitably 7G technology.
Is it possible through this technology to have impact on our mind? They call it this mind control. I heard about lots of experiments, but now,
oh, yes,
as we see now, we have much better technology. Is it possible they can use it to even have an impact on our minds, exactly on our thoughts? I heard, just to mention, I heard Mr. Klaus Schwab. We didn't mention him today, but I was listening to him. He says, we have technology that can provide us that we can anticipate thoughts in the future, and even we can anticipate for whom will these people vote. And in this case, we don't need to have election because we will know in front what they're going to decide it. I was listening to him. I didn't understand what he's talking about, but now maybe you can explain us.
Well, his right-hand man, Yuval Harari, said it very well. He said, you will be surveilled from under the skin. And what Harari is talking about is that this nanotechnology that I'm talking about, yes, they can run our behavior, our thoughts, our feelings, and our emotions. And I'm not talking about the future. Every time they use the future tense, just change it to the present tense. It's already happening. And so I say to people, if you have thoughts that don't seem like yours, that perhaps they're very negative thoughts and you don't normally think that way, well, I think you're right. It could be very much a wave just moving through you. You're in some sort of beam that is delivering a thought to someone or transferring a thought from someone to somewhere else. I think we need to really get used to that idea our privacy, as it's called, I don't even think about privacy anymore. It's really not something I particularly consider. I think for me, certainly as a public speaker along these lines, I doubt that I have any privacy. But it doesn't matter to me because I'm basically on a mission to let people know so they can make the proper decisions for their lives and their children's lives. If you have thoughts that way, if you have feelings that way, if you have something that does not seem like yours, pay close attention, because you're probably right. It isn't yours. And you can just say, as they do in the Bible, "Get behind me, Satan," or whatever you want to say. But to hold fast to your humanity, because your individuality and your humanity are precious. And that's why I fight so hard too. I don't want the state running my inner life. And that's exactly what they have in mind.
Are you afraid for your life?
But if you really know there's a real spiritual world, it really doesn't matter. I know to what I belong. And I know why I work so hard, and I go when I go.
Yes, I like to say there's some things that is worth living for, but also we have to find things that is worth dying for. And
that's right.
To wrap up, can you find what we have as a tool to fight against it, or we cannot fight? We already lost this battle.
No, we have a lot. We have a lot we can do. But again, your attitude about there are things to live for and there are things to die for is very valuable in this, because basically what I'm saying to people is, as a beginning, is obviously I believe knowledge is exceedingly important. They are not going to tell us anything about this huge scientific shift that is happening. And global societal. It's multi-level what is going on now. I don't know that we've ever had anything approaching this, even in other scientific revolutions. But the first thing is knowledge. Yes, remember, every time you watch television or get immersed in your cell phone, computer, or your computer, you are that much less immersed in your thinking, because you're just on receive then. You're just taking things in an alpha wave manner. Thinking happens through beta wave, and that has to do with the left brain. So the more you think, and the more you strengthen your thinking, the more you will be able to grasp the knowledge you need in order to survive this transition into a very different era. There is no stopping it. It will go forward, but I think you can learn a great deal from it. And that's my attitude, is I'm always learning. The second thing is go through your lifestyle and take a really good look at how much time and energy you put into your technology. The more you do with your technology, the less involved you are with human beings, your family, your children, nature, whatever. You get my point. And you want to have a balance with that to some degree. We're not here to be entertained. We're here to learn and to serve our individuality and humanity in general. Those are the real reasons we're here. So then the third thing would be, I hope you have an inner life. Your inner life, it could be Christian, it could be something else, it could be humanist if it's you're deeply engaged with it. But it has to be something that you have somewhat of a practice. I don't meditate or particularly pray, though sometimes it feels like the whole day is a prayer. And I am very connected to the divine world in some magical way. I don't know. My grandmother was a Roma gypsy, so maybe she did something that helped me along there. Then the third thing is, or the fourth thing is, I hope you cook. If you eat genetically modified foods in restaurants, and then the preparation is not full of love and care, you won't do well. And you will be knocking at the door of the medical industry, which to me is consummately much like knocking at the door of death. So those are just a few of my things I always say. That gets you started if you make a practice of these things. If you let fear take over and anxiety, then you won't stay human for long. You will open the door to all sorts of influences. And it looks to me, now that they're examining the blood of people who have been vaxxed, it looks to me as if the black magicians at Pfizer, etc., really know what they're doing on the dark side. So the dark side has been unleashed, and it's time to really cling to the very best of your humanity, the very highest. And that's the way I go.
Well, Elena, really it was huge pleasure for me, and it was knowledgeable, and I hope also that our audience will now, after that, take a look in your books, read it in details, and after that you will think about all these things what we mentioned now in a different way. Thank you for your work and what you are doing, that you're helping us to find out the truth, what they're hiding from us, and I wish you all the best in your future work.
Oh, thank you so much, and I appreciate that you are sharing with your people.
Evo, dragi narode, mislim da nakon ovih informacija koje ste čuli u ove dvije epizode, ćete gledati na mnoge stvari malo drugačije. Naravno, kao što uvijek volim reći da sam ja teoretičar zavjere. I da je to odlična informacija za sve vas koji mi slušate, jer to znači da sve ovo što pričam i svi gosti koje dovodim i od svemu god informacije koje vam dajem su netočne. I vi živite onda u svijetu u kojem je sve onako kako vam kažu mainstream mediji, kako vam kažu naši dragi političari, naši dragi predstavnici, navodni predstavnici naroda. Međutim, postavimo si pitanje, da li je slučajno? Evo, na primjer, ja kao teoretičar zavjere ću reći da je nakon ove oluje koja se dogodila prije 3 tjedna, gdje je nažalost 3 ljudi stradalo, i oluju koju mnogi nisu vidjeli nikada prije u životu, odjednom imamo puna 3 tjedna propagande o klimatskim promjenama i o tome kako smo mi kao ljudi obični, zato što proizvodimo CO2 izdišući i na ostale načine, krivi za to i pod hitno moramo nešto učiniti jer nam se ne piše dobro. To me podsjeća, evo mene kao teoretičara zavjere, podsjeća na vrijeme pandemije, kada smo pričali o slučajevima koji danas znamo da nisu bili bolesni ljudi, nego da su bili ili žrtve lošeg, nepouzdanog PCR testa ili jednostavno su proglašavani asimptomatskim bolesnicima koji u tom času uopće nisu bili opasni za svoju okolinu, ali zbog toga smo svi bili u strahu i tada su nam nametnuli mjere koje god su željeli i sve smo ih slušali. Zašto ne bi isti obrazac upotrebili danas? Naime, najjača emocija koja postoji je strah. Ja bih prije rekao, ljubav je najjača emocija. Ali opozit od ljubavi je strah. U strahu, a tu sam temu obradio sa gospodinom Jasonom Christophom, u strahu nam se blokira mozak. Prefrontalni korteks se blokira i pada nam IQ, kako kažu, inteligencija. Ne razmišljamo čisto, ne donosimo logične odluke, nego lako nas je natjerati na poslušnost. Stoga, strah je njihovo najjače oružje, ako žele da ih poslušamo i napravimo neke stvari koje u normalnim okolnostima, kad logično razmišljamo, nikad ne bi napravili. Zašto ne bi se ovom tehnologijom poslužili kako bi proizveli strah? Da uistinu povjerujemo da je čovjek odgovoran za klimatske promjene, da je čovjek odgovoran što će zemaljska kugla otići u nepovratni propast i da moramo podhitno nešto učiniti, pa ćemo prihvatiti klimatski lockdown, što nam već najavljuju. U Izraelu je bio prije par dana, odnosno par tjedana, u kome su određeni dijelovi grada bili zatvoreni. Pa ćemo prihvatiti recimo 15-minutne gradove koje sad imamo u Zagrebu u pripremi i nećemo se kreirati nigdje dalje od 15 minuta od mjesta gdje stanujemo. Pa ćemo prihvatiti da manje putujemo, da ne bi zagađivali okoliš, ili da ne jedemo meso, jer te krave koje proizvode dušik zagađuju okoliš, ili sad ove svinje koje navodno boluju od kuge, njih ćemo morati sve pobiti. Iako znamo da mnoge njih uopće nisu bolesne, iako znamo da su oni koji određuju jesu bolesne testirali ih tim PCR testovima, tim nepouzdanim testovima koje smo svjedočili u pandemiji, i zbog toga ćemo se zaštititi, odnosno zaštitit ćemo okoliš tako da ćemo pobiti te svinje i ješćemo meso. Meso koje će nam isprintati u printeru, što sam vidio osobno prezentaciju Benjamina Netanyahua proizvodnje koja u roku minute proizvede biftek iz printera, pa ćemo eto njima dati priliku da jedemo ono što nam nametnu. Za sve to je potrebno da kreiraju veliki strah, da mi emocijom odlučujemo, a ne razumom, pa bi nas na kraju spasili na njihov način. Ali ovo su sve teorije zavjere. Kao što sam rekao, ja se nadam da sa ovom misijom ste zadovoljni, ja se nadam da su vam se horizonti otvorili, da ćete početi razmišljati o stvarima kojima svjedočimo na drugi način, a ja ću nastojati dalje otvarati ove teme, jer kao što ste vidjeli do sad te teme ne možete naći u mainstream mediju, tamo možete naći samo isključivo propagandu, promociju i novinarski aktivizam, a istini ne treba promocija. Istinu je dovoljno da čujete. Hvala vam lijepa na pažnji i vidimo se u sljedećoj epizodi Slobodnog.
Nitko vas neće natjerati da se poklonite zvijeri, učinit ćete to svoje voljom, odbacujući vjeru. Bićete laka meta za zvijeri, jer se niste podredili vjeri. Ako se ne podredite vjeri, podredit ćete se zvijeri. Toliko ćete se suobličiti sa ovim svijetom, da nećete ni prepoznati da ste u zabludi. Biće to najveća demonska prevara ikada i pravedno zaslužena osuda nad nepokajanim grešnicima.